Today, most of the world is republics, and it feels like that trend will continue. However, in this video, I'll explain why the future of monarchism is not in long-dead dynasties, but rather in new dictatorships. Since the end of World War I, monarchism has been a fringe ideology. Before World War I, when a new country was created, a new dynasty would be created. They would get some prince, normally from Germany, and they would be the king of this new country. But with the complete destruction of the German Empire and the Russian Empire, the new liberal world order reigned supreme. In Europe today, what few monarchies do still exist support the liberal world order. They are not truly monarchist. What separates the royals from the common people has basically all but disappeared. There is practically no difference between an aristocrat and a commoner nowadays. But speaking of the Netherlands, it should be remembered that the Netherlands was originally a republic. The Dutch Republic. It was only the Napoleonic Wars, which was the first great strike against the European Christian order, that the Dutch became a monarchy. Before that, they were a republic, ruled by a stadtholder. So that is an example of a non-monarchy, a non-kingdom, a republic becoming a monarchy. Another example of a republic becoming a monarchy is Rome. But did the emperors ever call themselves kings? No. They called themselves princeps or principal or whatnot, which means first citizen. Or in other words, they didn't claim to replace the republic with a monarchy, but that's just how everyone sees it. So that is another point for my argument that hereditary dictatorships are the future of monarchy. As such, under all reasonable and fair analysis, a country such as North Korea is undeniably a monarchy. The Kim dynasty even has that special blood in the pack, like Kim Jong-il was not born at Mount Paektu, but on one of the footwalls of Mount Paektu. In the North Korean mythology, he is the second coming of Taegeon. He is a rebirth of Korea. He is like a new founder. Like, it doesn't get more royal than that. People don't notice it, but the Pahlavis in Iran were military dictators, not monarchs. Like, the Pahlavis came to power in a coup. They deposed the Shah and called themselves the Shah. Like, if that happened 50 years later, it wouldn't be, we are the new Shahs, we are the president. But the reason why that doesn't happen today is because monarchies aren't in fashion. Republics are. As such, a military man isn't going to overthrow a king and declare himself a king. He's going to overthrow a president and declare himself the new president. Like, seriously, what's royal about the nephew of a dictator getting elected, declare himself president for life? Of course, eventually he did get defeated by the Prussians, but you get the idea. Practically speaking, a hereditary dictatorship isn't actually that much different to a absolute monarchy. So, yes, I like the old dynasties. I wish they would return, but that isn't going to happen. And it's not like the enemies of monarchy see any difference between a king and dictator. For them, the only legitimate leader is one who superficially has the support of the people, someone who wins the vote in what they consider a fair election. So it's not like being against a hereditary dictatorship will be better for current monarchies. As such, I think monarchists, where appropriate, should prefer a hereditary dictatorship to like straight up republics. Because the fact is that the old dynasties do not want to be back in power. They aren't pushing for it. As such, wanting to make someone a political leader against their will is not going to work. It's not going to work as a grassroots movement. It's a practical impossibility. As such, if the world is going to become monarchist again, if the majority of countries are to become monarchies, well, the people now are the same as people 5,000 years ago. And just as like civilization became monarchies, that can happen again. But that won't happen for restoring old dynasties. It will happen by hereditary dictatorships transforming into monarchies. For example, North Korea has lasted 3 generations, and once a hereditary dictatorship lasts, let's say, 5 generations, then I'd say it is, in fact, a monarchy. So yeah, with out of the box thinking, the future of monarchy is not as bleak as it looks. Of course, not all hereditary dictatorships are monarchies, but as I said, after 5 generations, if one dynasty has ruled from father to son, then yes, I'd say it is a monarchy, and eventually, if it changes its name to like a kingdom, then that dynasty is as legit as the Pahlavis. And I don't hear anyone saying that the Pahlavis were not real monarchs. They weren't real kings. So I'd say the Kims in North Korea are more legitimate than them. So yes, if North Korea is a monarchy, because it does say it is the law in North Korea that a descendant of Kim Il-sung must be the supreme leader. If there's a rule like that in a country, then yes, it is a monarchy. So I'd say the best hope for monarchy becoming mainstream again is if hereditary dictatorships become monarchies. And that is all.